Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. Now, I promise this channel is not turning into a manga review channel. I am still interested in a lot of different things. And right now, manga gives me a good chance to talk about something I've always been interested in, but never really had a great case study for. And furthermore, a topic a lot of people tend to discuss in general terms, but rarely drill down into specifics. And that is how a flat character arc can still illustrate character development through the narrative technique of contrast. We are often told that a character like Superman is very boring because he already possesses a very strong moral core, and he rarely has to spend a lot of time deliberating a moral question when one of his adversaries confronts him with a dilemma. The general counter-offer to this is that Superman can and should serve as an inspiration to other characters who will then try and develop, if not the incredible power of Superman, at least some fraction of his moral fortitude. Unfortunately, with modern media being what it is, we rarely see these kind of thematic elements drilled into with any real depth. At least in some forms of media. Now, I've been reading Akane Banashi for, well, pretty much since it started its run. So coming on 2 years now. One of the interesting things about Akane as a protagonist in this story is that she is a very flat protagonist. Of course, Akane Banashi runs in Shonen Jump, a magazine that mostly focuses on stories about characters developing a set of skills and carving a place in the world as they come of age. While some of these characters undergo an arc where they gain confidence and a greater understanding of themselves, it's not mandatory. Characters with no arc are perfectly at home in the pages of Shonen Jump. Furthermore, Akane is an artist. A performing artist, granted, but an artist nonetheless. And so her strong sense of ego and certainty in herself is not terribly surprising. These are things you have to have if you really want to hack it in the arts, especially in the performing arts. Now, Akane's strong self-confidence doesn't bar her from developing her skills and learning more about the world of Rakugo. Author Suenaga Yuki is a Rakugo novice and has used the opportunity of writing this series to drill down into the art form and clearly presents the idiosyncrasies of the art form through Akane's eyes. And as she develops her understanding and new skills to help her present her stories, we get a better sense of how the art form works. All well and good. This kind of exploratory storytelling is something that characters with a flat arc are very adept at. I am also aware that there is a tension inherent to Akane's character. Akane is inspired by her father's art form. She wants to bring it back to life after her father was expelled from the Rakugo school where he was studying the art form. This is a very admirable task. The problem is that Akane and her father are actually quite different people. Akane seems to take much more after her mother, at least in terms of temperament. She's very headstrong, very determined, and very focused on her goal. Shinta, Akane's father, is a little more wishy-washy. He doesn't have quite the internal fortitude. He requires a little more encouragement to stay the course. And when he's ultimately expelled, it's enough that he leaves that particular art form entirely, and he takes a more mundane job as a salesman. Now, there were other factors at play in Shinta's case, which I don't really intend to break down here. Suffice it to say, there has been a tension between the kind of art Akane is trying to recreate, the tender, warm-hearted, but a little self-conscious and unsure of itself art that her father presented to her, which she is not quite as adept at recreating. She can mimic what she saw her father do, but she doesn't have the human understanding that he did that made him so skilled at creating those living and believable characters. Shinta perfected his art form by studying people. Akane perfected her art form by studying one person, her father. Now, the most recent story arc was really focused on that internal conflict in Akane. However, she did manage to resolve it without any large crisis of faith, without any reevaluation of her internal motivations, or where she intends to go with her art form. So, really, the outcome did not come from character development. It came, as always, through technique development. and that's fine for a flat character arc about a person exploring an art form and mastering it. That doesn't mean there are no character arcs in this story. Again, one of the strengths of a flat character arc is how you can study other characters changing in response to your protagonist. In the case of Akane Banashi, this change comes about because other people see the purity and single-minded focus Akane has in recreating the art that she loves. She is focused with that laser-like precision on the Rakugo that she saw her father perform when she was younger. Of course, Shinta introduced Akane to Rakugo and placed that love in her, and she still offers her own performances as a tribute to that particular brand of Rakugo. She also has a deep and abiding passion for the art form in all its forms. She does not hesitate to seek out other people to help her understand the art form, to help her learn more about the art form, and to help push her to a higher level of mastery of the art form. However, over the course of Akane's career, she does meet 3 people who do not have quite the same single-minded purity of focus and motivation that Akane does. One of these characters is a voice actress by the name of Hikaru. Hikaru is what you might consider a hick. She's not from a big city like Tokyo, but she's working in an industry, voice acting and general acting, that is very much about projecting a sense of culture and sophistication. Hikaru has a bit of an inferiority complex as a result of this. She's a bit of an uncultured girl in a line of work that is all about culture and sophistication. So she chooses Rakugo, a very traditional art form, as a way to try and polish up her own credentials. She's not really interested in the art form. She doesn't have a deep and abiding love for it. She's just trying to make herself look good. And she figures she already knows all she needs to as a performer because, hey, that's what she does for a living. Problem is, the first time her performance is compared to Akane's, she's left entirely in the dust. Akane's passion and love for Rakugo as an art form far outshines that Hikaru brings to the table. There's a similar situation with Karashi. In fact, Karashi and Hikaru meet Akane at the same time. Karashi is somebody who is very self-satisfied with his own intelligence and his own sense of humor. Rakugo is not just a performing art, it's supposed to be a humorous one. But Karashi looks at it and he sees something that's just out of touch. He doesn't think people his own age are going to get any of the jokes or any of the humor. So he sets out to prove his own intelligence by updating Rakugo's stories and making them something that people his own age will understand. Or at least so he tells himself. However, all the time Karashi spends showing off his intelligence, his big brain jokes, his incredibly sophisticated sense of modern humor, is time he is not spending polishing his skills as a storyteller. His cadence, his timing, his gestures, his expressions, they are all lackluster compared to Akane, who has spent her entire life studying at her father's feet, trying to master these expressions, these gestures, these techniques, this timing. Karashi's performance is not about Rakugo, it's about his ego, and that comes through to the audience. He does not do as well as Akane does either. Both of these characters, after being defeated by Akane in a competition, changed their outlooks on the art form. Both of them thought they understood it perfectly already. When confronted with someone whose love of the art form had driven them far, far deeper into it than they had ever thought anyone could go, they are frustrated, a little ashamed, and yes, driven to begin investigating the art form all over again because they have seen what someone who is really passionate about it can achieve. Both Hikaru and Karashi make Rakugo a part of their career going forward, and that is quite a substantial change from where they were when we first met them. But the most interesting character change we see comes from Guriko. Guriko is actually one of Akane's senior students. And it's because of the changes we see in Guriko that I really wanted to make this video. I think it's very fascinating. See, Guriko has been studying Rakugo longer than Akane has. At least formally. Akane has been studying her father's Rakugo for much longer than Guriko has. But that's not really the point here. In a very hierarchical, almost trade school-like atmosphere, which is what the Rakugo schools we see in Akane banashi seem to have, a senior apprentice has certain responsibilities, and Guriko takes them very seriously, to his credit. Guriko has a lot of gratitude to his elders, the people who helped him find his own feet when he was just starting out as an apprentice. When Akane walks in the door, not only is she his first junior apprentice, she's also the daughter of the senior apprentice that helped him get his feet. She's Shinta's daughter, someone that Guriko knew very well. The problem is, Guriko is thinking about his responsibilities as a senior apprentice. And while he's doing that, he's not thinking about Rakugo. Now, after working with Akane for about 70 chapters, roughly a year in terms of storytelling, Guriko has come to a very humbling admission. He's realized that Akane is a better Rakugoka than he is. Unlike Hikaru and Kurashi, Guriko was actually focused on something very admirable. He was given a lot of gifts by other people, and he wanted to pay those gifts forward. The problem was he became so focused on paying forward what he had received, he never took the time to cultivate what he had received, to improve on it, to build on it. He did not have the same passion for the art form that Akane did, and so Akane very rapidly outstripped everything he could teach her, and he was left with nothing else to give her. And so Guriko also had to come to grips with the fact that until he became better at Rakugo, he could not pay forward the gifts he had been given. It took meeting Akane for him to realize that. I think it's pretty cool that you can have a series that presents you with a character who changes very little, but still makes you think about the art form and the impact it has on people in such complicated ways. I think Akane is a great case study in the power of a flat character arc, in particular because she does not have any of the overblown superpowers or strange, stressful situations that you see in something like a superhero comic, or even an action or adventure comic. Akane is just a girl chasing her dream in an attempt to offer something back to the parents who raised her. She certainly has a lot of natural gifts that help her pursue her dream, but she also has a lot of passion and a very long track record of pursuing this dream. In short, she has a lot of mundane, simple, human aspects that make her very good at one specific thing. I'm sure everyone knows one or two people like that. In short, she's the perfect flat character to examine how the flat character archetype can be used in a story to still create interesting character progression. If you haven't read Akane banashi, and believe me, there are a lot of great reasons to read the story outside of just how it illustrates different kinds of character progression, but if that kind of thing does interest you, I highly recommend reading this series. It handles it with a great deal of skill and deftness that is very satisfying to see. At least, that's what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk